What if Sabo was at Marineford? Cannon fire tears the sky apart. On the platform at Marineford, Portgus D. Ace kneels in chains, waiting to die in front of the world. Below, Monkey D. Luffy is already bleeding, already staggering, already too late by every sane calculation. Whitebeard is dying on his feet. The admirals are closing in. The order has been given. Execute the Pirate King's son. But in this timeline, Ace is not the only brother on the battlefield. Through the smoke and snow of shattered ice, another figure slips into the war. A battered top hat, a metal pipe, a revolutionary's coat, and a face both Ace and Luffy buried years ago. What if Sabo reached Marineford before Ace died? That is the point of divergence. Sabo arrives at Marineford in time to see both of his brothers alive, before Akainu can turn the rescue into a tragedy. 3 brothers on the same battlefield. One execution that never quite goes as planned. This is Marineford, rebuilt around the brother who was missing. Marineford is already a graveyard before Sabo ever steps into the story. The world government has sentenced Ace not just as a pirate, but as Goldie Roger's son. This isn't simple punishment, it's theater. The age Roger sparked will be strangled in front of the entire world. To stop that, Whitebeard sails into Marineford with everything he has left. Allied captains, division commanders, ships erupting from the sea as he literally tilts the ocean itself. Old, sick, still the world's strongest man, betting the rest of his life on one thing: saving his son. Then, the wild card slams into the war. Fresh out of Impel Down, held together by adrenaline and sheer will, he crashes into Marineford on a stolen marine ship with a makeshift army of prisoners, revolutionaries, and old enemies. No strategy, no long game, just one goal that drowns out everything else: save Ace. The admirals form a living wall of color and destruction. Pacifistas march like an assembly line of executioners. The warlords carve their own paths through the chaos. Whitebeard's age shows in every clash. In that version of history, Luffy somehow makes it. He reaches the platform. He breaks the chains. For a single blazing heartbeat, it looks like he's stolen a victory from the entire world. Then Akainu moves. He baits Ace, provokes him, and drives a magma fist straight through his body as Ace shields Luffy. Ace dies in his little brother's arms. The world trembles. Luffy shatters. That's the Marineford we know. Now imagine the one person who never got the chance to see it, meeting that future before it happens. Far from Marineford, in a hidden revolutionary base, someone sorts through reports. Cipher pole movements, noble convoys, local uprisings. Routine intel, until a different bulletin lands on the table. Public execution. Name: Portgus D. Ace. Lineage: son of Gold D. Roger. Location: Marineford. Broadcast: worldwide. For most of the world, it's a headline. For Sabo, it's a knife. The name, the bloodline. The fact it will be shown to everyone. And then the certainty. If Ace is there, Luffy will find a way to be there too. He doesn't need reports on Straw Hat's movements. Memory fills in the gaps. A scrawny kid in a straw hat, screaming about the Pirate King, picking fights with nobles, never backing down from anything that scares him. He can see 2 futures. One where he stays with the revolution, keeps his head down, and later reads that both his brothers died at Marineford. Or one where he breaks every protocol he's ever followed and runs straight into the center of the world's biggest war. For Dragon, Marineford is a clash between pirates and marines. For the Revolutionary Army, intervening is strategically reckless. For Sabo, none of that matters. He shoves the reports aside. The decision snaps into place before he can talk himself out of it. He's going to Marineford, and he's going fast enough to get there before the story is over. The execution isn't announced for the next morning. The world needs time to react. Whitebeard has time to mobilize. The warlords have time to gather. The Yonko have time to watch. The revolutionaries have time to decide, not to act. Sabo moves before anyone can order him to stand down. He grabs the fastest vessel they have anywhere near the Grand Line. Maybe a disguised marine courier, maybe a coded revolutionary transport. It doesn't matter, as long as the hull can take punishment. Picture the journey as a brutal montage. Cold wind slamming his coat against him as he stands on deck, fingers white-knuckled around his iron pipe. Storm clouds rolling overhead as the ship cuts across routes sane crews avoid. Snatches of intercepted Den Den Mushi chatter as the war ignites ahead. Whitebeard has arrived. The bay is frozen. A boy named Monkey D. Luffy has crashed the execution. Each report is another second slipping away. It's no longer just save Ace. It's get there before both of them die on live broadcast. He hears admirals engaged, Whitebeard coughing blood, Straw Hat in the plaza, and his jaw sets harder. He doesn't know the exact minute Ace will die in the original timeline. Only that every minute he's not there belongs to the executioner. Marineford signal towers grow on the horizon like the teeth of a trap. He doesn't slow down. By the time Marineford's skyline appears, the war has already gone off the rails. The bay is an endless field of shattered ice. Ships lie broken, frozen mid-wave. The sky is a haze of smoke and cannon fire. Quakes still echo through the air. A careful infiltrator would circle, study, find a gap. He threads his ship in under a forged marine signal, piggybacking on an identification code meant for reinforcements. Almost every eye is turned inward toward Whitebeard. No one is scanning for one more speck on the horizon. When they're close enough, he abandons the vessel entirely. He drops to the frozen bay, boots skidding, and launches himself forward with trained speed, pipe already in hand. The ice plaza ahead is a meat grinder. Marines and pirates clash in dense knots. Pacifistas advance in eerie unison. Explosions bloom where devil fruits collide. Sabo sprints straight into it. He fights like a saboteur, not a hero. One strike to a squad leader's jaw, and a firing line loses discipline. One blow to the ice under a charging unit, and momentum scatters on the slick surface. Quick, efficient swings, never staying in one spot long enough to draw a coordinated volley. He pushes deeper, eyes already searching for two faces. Even as he dodges bullets and blades, he reads the battlefield like an officer. The elevated execution platform, the cluster of admirals, the lines of pacifistas, the artillery arcs, the warlords carving their own carnage. Then he sees it. Not a power signature, not a transmission, a straw hat. It bobs through the chaos, surrounded by scattered allies, Jinbei's hulking form, Ivankov's towering silhouette, and a blur of rubber limbs wreathed in dear-second steam. Luffy is already in the center of hell, bleeding, limping, screaming Ace's name. In that instant, Sabo's mission splits. Ace is locked on the platform, guarded by legends. Luffy is exposed, an obvious target in a killing ground built to erase him. Saving Ace means nothing if Luffy dies on the way up. Saving Luffy means nothing if Ace's blood still stains the gallows. He can't choose one brother, so he looks for the fault lines that let him grasp both. He angles toward Luffy first. Between Sabo and Luffy is layered death. Marine squads firing in tight formation. Allied pirates hurling themselves against bayonets. Stray ice spears and beams of light. Sabo cuts a path. A pacifista's targeting light slides over Luffy's chest. The cyborg's mouth glows, energy pooling. Luffy stumbles on broken ice, too slow to dodge. Jinbei is out of position. Ivankov is occupied. Sabo doesn't think. He jumps. His pipe slams into the pacifista's head with a metallic clang, just enough to jerk its aim off by a hair. The laser slices past Luffy's shoulder instead of through his heart, carving a smoking trench into the battlefield. Luffy crashes onto the ice, stunned. Steam hisses from his skin. He looks up through drifting smoke and sees a silhouette. Blonde hair, scarred face, old pipe. The voice that cuts through the roar is older, rougher, but unmistakable. "Move, Luffy!" He reacts on instinct, flinging himself behind cover before he even processes the order. Then he stares. The man in front of him looks wrong and right at the same time. Taller, scarred, coat of a revolutionary, but the eyes, the pipe, the reflex of stepping between Luffy and danger like it's the only place he belongs. His throat tightens around a name that never stopped hurting. Sabo. Up on the platform, Ace has no choice but to watch the battlefield eat itself. He sees Luffy tearing his way forward, falling and rising by sheer stubbornness. He's already accepted the possibility that his little brother might die here, and there's nothing he can do to change it. Then a new figure appears near Luffy. Just another blur at first. But as that man turns to smash a pacifista, Ace catches blonde hair, a scarred profile, a pipe glinting in the light. His breath stops. He has dreamed Sabo alive 100 times in guilty, sleepless flashes. But dreams don't take hits. Dreams don't stagger, recover, and start fighting again. His voice comes out a hoarse rasp, too low for anyone nearby to care. Sabo. The Marines at his back don't understand what the name means. They don't feel the ground shift under one condemned man. Ace was meant to die with one brother watching. Now he looks down and sees both boys he thought he'd lost, Luffy to the sea, Sabo to the flames, standing together beneath his execution. Fear doesn't vanish, but something even more dangerous creeps in. Hope. On the ice, Luffy is staring like he's seen a ghost. His mouth opens, tripping over Sabo's name and a dozen questions. Sabo cuts him off. Listen. His hand clamps on Luffy's shoulder, solid and real. Ace is still up there. You're not getting to him alone. Luffy wants answers. Where Sabo went, why he never came back, how he's here now. Marineford answers with cannon fire. A blast eradicates their chunk of ice, hurling them in opposite directions. Luffy slams into a frozen ridge. Sabo rolls, skidding through shattered debris. An admiral's gaze flicks their way, that lethal, measuring attention. They've seen each other. They know. But this isn't a reunion. Sabo's return can't be about apologies. It has to be about survival. Up close, Marineford's structure is horrifyingly clear. Admirals anchoring the front, Sengoku and Garp on the platform, pacifistas and vice admirals forming lethal choke points, warlords adding unpredictable force spikes. Whitebeard's alliance is bleeding just to hold ground. One revolutionary officer is not going to win this war. So Sabo chooses a smaller, sharper objective. He's not here to defeat Marineford. He's here to ruin its timing. In the original story, Luffy reaches Ace just late enough for Akainu to line up a perfect killing blow. If Sabo can accelerate even one crucial beat, if he can shove Luffy a few seconds ahead of that schedule, the script might not play out the same way. His mission narrows to a brutal point. Drive Luffy to the platform faster than fate intended. Luffy fights like a storm. Wild, instinctive, unplanned. In canon, he claws forward on raw will, burning himself out with every step. With Sabo on the field, that same storm gets something new. A navigator. Sabo begins barking short, precise orders between strikes. Left, gap in the line. Down, now. Don't stop, that captains your opening. Under normal circumstances, Luffy doesn't follow plans. But some part of him is hardwired to move when Sabo yells. He still charges like a lunatic, but the charges bend around the densest artillery. He crashes into formations Sabo has just destabilized from the flank. When he slams into a new cluster of Marines, Sabo is already swinging in from the side to break their rhythm. The path is still hell. Luffy still takes hits, but they're advancing faster than the original timeline allowed. From his vantage point, Whitebeard sees countless fighters, brave, foolish, desperate. One new pattern stands out. A blonde man with a pipe. Not Marine, not pirate, carving through the melee with efficient strikes, constantly orbiting around Straw Hat, relentlessly steering him toward the platform. Whitebeard doesn't know Sabo's name. He doesn't need to. He recognizes another soul on this field, fighting like Ace is everything. For a man whose dream is a family, that's all the information he requires. His next quakes are not random rage. He cracks Marine lines that block that route. He smashes open choke points that would have stalled Luffy and Sabo. He uses his remaining strength to tilt the battlefield in favor of this unknown brother. He sailed here to die for one son. Without saying a word, he throws the weight of a Yonko behind three. On the Marine side, that distortion can't go unanswered. Strategists and vice admirals start to see it too. There's a sector where formations keep collapsing just as Straw Hat pushes through, where an unidentified fighter is opening seams. If anyone recognizes revolutionary doctrine in his movement, alarm bells ring. If Dragon's people are willing to interfere in Marineford, this execution isn't just about pirates anymore. Orders snap down the chain. That sector becomes a priority target. Pacifistas reorient. Kizaru's lazy drawl hides focused beams of light, harassing that vector. Every unit diverted to crush Sabo and Luffy is a unit not perfectly placed around the platform. The net is still deadly, just not flawless. Between Whitebeard's redirected quakes, Luffy's indestructible will, and Sabo's surgical chaos, a jagged path opens toward the gallows. It's not a clean corridor. It's a rip in a net. Bodies carpet the ice. Whitebeard worsens with every clash. The admirals unleash more and more power. The difference from canon is measured in seconds and angles. In the original story, by the time Luffy reaches Ace, the war has already crystallized around one perfect killing opportunity for Akainu. Here, Luffy reaches the base of the platform a hair sooner. Marines have shuffled resources to respond to the new threat. Akainu has been forced to spend a little more attention on Whitebeard's sudden aggression. Those are the seconds this entire what-if rests on. However Luffy makes the leap, the outcome aligns with the broad strokes. He reaches Ace. The shackles break. Ace rises, wrists bleeding. In canon, the knowledge that Luffy crossed the world for him almost paralyzes him. It proves, too late, that he was worth that much to his little brother. Here, that realization hits even harder. Because through the haze of smoke and steam, Ace doesn't just see Luffy burned and reeling. He sees Sabo, alive, fighting, backlit by fire. The boy who died chasing freedom in Goa has come to rip him off an execution platform at the center of the world. I was worth this much to Luffy expands to I was worth surviving for, to Sabo. For someone who grew up believing I should never have been born, that is almost unbearable. He doesn't get to dwell on it. Akainu is already moving. Akainu does not tolerate symbols escaping. He sees Ace unchained, walking off their execution stage. He sees Luffy beside him, still roaring defiance. He sees a third brother, distorting the script. Magma boils around his fists as he sets his sights on the same weak point as before. Kill Luffy. Break Ace. Salvage the message. He charges, all killing intent. The scene tilts back toward horrifying familiarity. Akainu lunges. He taunts. He provokes. He aims a fatal blow at Luffy. Ace moved without thought, body already turning to take the hit. In the original story, that's the end. Here there's another presence in the kill zone. Sabo. Sabo has been waiting for this moment without knowing its details. He understands the instincts at play. The deadliest strike won't be random. It will be a deliberate execution swing, aimed where it hurts most. So when Akainu's magma fist arcs in, Sabo is already closing from the side. Luffy is there. Ace is throwing himself between them and death. Sabo brings his pipe down with everything he has, fully aware he can't overpower an admiral head-on. He doesn't try to block. He tries to deflect. Steel meets magma. The pipe shrieks and half melts. The impact can't stop the punch, but it twists it. The magma still lands. There is no clean escape at that range, but instead of punching straight through Ace's torso, it tears across his side and chest on a shallower path, savaging flesh and bone without immediately killing him. Superheated fragments and shock slam into Sabo, shredding his shoulder and ribs. He's flung sideways, armor of discipline cracking into raw cane. Luffy is thrown clear, blistered and burned, but spared the core of the blast. For a heartbeat, all three brothers are inside the radius of Akainu's justice. In canon, one dies. Here, all three are on the ground, smoking, broken, but breathing. Akainu feels the failure. This was supposed to be clean, a simple symbolic execution stroke. It isn't. His eyes harden. Whitebeard sees it all. Ace collapsing, but not yet gone. Luffy pulling himself up again. Sabo on his knees in a puddle of cooling magma, fingers still clenched around the warped remains of his pipe. His long life, his wounds, his illness, all of it compresses into one last, sharp purpose. In canon, his final stand is about buying time for his sons. Here, his focus narrows to three battered silhouettes the world is trying to erase. He decides that will not happen while his heart still moves blood. He hurls himself at Akainu with suicidal intent. Quakes roar through the plaza. Air shatters. Marineford itself screams under the stress as Whitebeard smashes down everything between him and the admiral who nearly killed his boys. Akainu is too proud and too dangerous to ignore an attack from the world's strongest man. He's forced, for several precious exchanges, to shift from pure offense to survival. For the length of that clash, his attention is dragged away from the three brothers. It's the opening they'll never get again. Whitebeard's onslaught doesn't erase his wounds. He is still a dead man walking. Blackbeard can still lurk, waiting to steal his power. But while this titan keeps Akainu busy and tears open the plaza, Jinbei barrels through the chaos, seizing Luffy's limp body. Ivankov and other allies hurl out techniques to blind, blast, and scatter Marine ranks. Whitebeard's commanders and allied captains throw themselves at any Marine who steps toward Ace and Sabo. Ace is half-conscious, burns turning every breath into fire, but alive. Sabo staggers, one arm useless, still placing his body between Ace and the nearest gun out of habit. They don't get a neat corridor. They get a bloody, shifting lane of desperation. Behind them, Whitebeard keeps fighting until there is nothing left of his body that can answer his will. Blackbeard still appears, takes advantage, and steals the Guragura no Mi. Marineford still watches a Yonko fall, but the centerpiece execution, the clean eradication of Roger's bloodline, fails. The world doesn't see Ace die. It sees him vanish, carried from the battlefield by comrades, alive because two brothers reached him in time to twist one punch. The government's message fractures in half. Marineford burns behind them. Retreat is chaos. Overloaded ships. Screams. Smoke drifting low over the waves. The ocean itself boiling under stray attacks. In the crush, it's a miracle the three brothers aren't separated. Somehow, through Jinbei's endurance, allies' cover, and sheer stubborn fate, they reach a ship, a hidden cove, some stolen pocket of safety. The specifics matter less than the silence that follows. Luffy collapses the instant he's allowed to stop. Ace hovers at the edge of death, his burns severe enough to kill lesser men outright. Sabo, half-melted pipe still in reach, refuses to be treated properly until he knows the others are stabilized. Time blurs into painkillers and bandage changes. When Ace finally wakes, it's to dim light, the creak of wood, and throbbing unfamiliar pain where he expected emptiness. He hears voices, Jinbei low and steady, Luffy hoarse, emotional, trying to shout with half a throat, and then Sabo, the brother he watched die in Goa, the ghost that haunted every night on Whitebeard's ship. Sitting within arm's reach, also bandaged, also battered, but very much real. There's no space for grand speeches. They're all too damaged, too aware the world is still hunting them. But one truth settles into place. Ace didn't learn he was loved with his last breath. He survived into that knowledge. Luffy still breaks under the weight of Marineford. He saw Whitebeard die for his sons. He saw friends and allies fall around him. He watched Ace almost burn on that platform, Sabo almost melt beside him. But the shape of his scar changes. In the original timeline, his lesson is simple and brutal. I wasn't strong enough to save Ace. Here, Ace is alive. Sabo is alive. They both nearly died anyway, throwing themselves between Luffy and death. A different thought takes root. I can't keep making my brothers pay for my weakness. When Jinbei, and later Rayleigh, tell him that charging into the new world as he is will only lead to more blood, they're not arguing with numb grief. They're speaking to a boy who just watched two brothers refuse to let him die. Rayleigh's proposal, to vanish, train for 2 years and come back stronger, still makes cruel sense. This time, Luffy isn't just running from the memory of a dead brother. He's running toward a future where he can stand beside Ace and Sabo as an equal, not as someone they're constantly throwing themselves in front of. His chest still carries scars from Marineford. Now, they echo wounds his brothers survived too. Ace doesn't walk away clean. He carries brutal burns, the image of Whitebeard's last stand, and the knowledge that the world saw him almost die and fail to. He used to treat his life as expendable, a cursed inheritance he could spend to protect others and settle the question of whether he deserved to exist. That logic collapses. He can't pretend his death would only affect him. Now he's Roger's son, whose execution failed on camera. Whitebeard's son, for whom a Yonko died. Luffy and Sabo's brother, for whom both of them bled in Marineford. If he throws himself at another noble sacrifice, he's not just rejecting his birth. He's spitting on the people who tore the world open to keep him alive. Sabo will not let that stand. Every time Ace mutters about being willing to die, Sabo can look him in the eye and say, "We did not break Marineford so you could go looking for another scaffold." Ace's recklessness won't vanish overnight. His guilt won't evaporate. But there's a new, immovable counterweight. Two brothers who refuse to accept his death as an acceptable outcome. That tension becomes the gravity his choices orbit. Sabo leaves Marineford scarred and suddenly visible. He disobeyed orders. He revealed a revolutionary presence in the most watched battle on the planet. The world government updates its files. Not just Dragon the Revolutionary and Monkey D. Luffy the Pirate, but a third point in the constellation. A blonde revolutionary officer who fought shoulder to shoulder with both at Marineford. Dragon, watching from the shadows, has to adapt. Strategically, Sabo's stunt drags their movement into the spotlight earlier than planned. Anonymity erodes, cipher pole attention sharpens. Operations grow riskier. Symbolically, it's powerful. No kingdom stepped in to save Ace. The Marines turned his bloodline into theater. But a revolutionary did move. Whispers spread. When the world watched, the government tried to execute Roger's son, and Dragon's people interfered. Sabo becomes notorious earlier than in canon, a living rumor for the discontent. The man who stood between the Pirate King's legacy and the world government's justice. For Sabo himself, the deeper shift is personal. He now has two gravitational pulls: the global war against the world government, and the fragile, irreplaceable world of his brothers. He's still Dragon's chief of staff. But every plan he makes from now on will carry a quiet, stubborn sub-goal: build a world where Luffy and Ace can live as more than prey and propaganda. Whenever duty and family pull in opposite directions, Marineford will sit in the back of his mind, a reminder of which choice he made when it counted. Officially, Marineford is still a victory. A Yonko fell. The balance of the seas shifted. The Marines held the line. Inside their offices, the failure to execute Ace festers. Sakazuki, above all, cannot swallow it. Absolute justice does not miss. He watched his killing strike warp off course because of some revolutionary rat. He watched the son of Gol D. Roger slip through fingers that were supposed to be iron. The response is predictable. Harsher measures, less tolerance for symbols, increased pressure on anything that smells like revolutionary activity tied to the D name. To the world government, the three brothers are no longer just strong individuals. They are narrative threats. Ace, proof that even the Marines' most public justice can fail. Luffy, the chaos engine who broke Impel down, crashed Marineford, and lived. Sabo, the revolutionary link that turned a pirate execution into a three-way war of ideas. If people start believing that no scaffold can kill the will of D, that family can literally fight its way through Marineford's guns, then the story the government relies on starts to crack. Marineford stands. Its intended message does not. Across the seas, taverns buzz. Whitebeard's death still sends shockwaves through the New World. His territories still fracture. Blackbeard still ascends, armed with the Gura Gura no Mi. Layered over that is another legend, growing fast. They couldn't kill Ace. Three brothers stormed Marineford and made it out. Details warp in the retelling. In some versions, Sabo is a secret admiral defector. In others, Luffy is a giant. Sometimes Ace is said to have shattered his own chains. The core remains. The world tried to stage an execution, and three brothers tore a hole in the script. For Whitebeard's remnants, Ace becomes more than their captain's beloved son. He's a living promise. A second chance they almost lost. Rally their scattered family around Ace as their new core, the man who survived the gallows, or let him sail his own path, carrying Whitebeard's will into a different future. Whatever they decide, the Whitebeard name doesn't become a grave marker. It's a standard carried by a man who walked away from Marineford's scaffold. For the Revolutionary Army, Marineford accelerates everything. They can't pretend to be whispers when one of their top officers brawled on the execution ground with the sons of Dragon and Roger. Some allies will flinch. Others, long crushed under the government's heel, will be inspired. If even Marineford couldn't make its lesson stick, maybe the government isn't untouchable. Dragon's timetable tightens whether he likes it or not. The government's crackdowns intensify. Cypherpole missions grow uglier. Sabo's personal myth becomes a double-edged sword. He's no longer just Dragon's apprentice. He's the face of the moment when revolution, pirate era, and the will of D intersected in public defiance. In a world ruled by stories as much as by force, that makes him dangerous. All of this loops back to one practical question for Luffy. Does he still vanish for 2 years to train? Everything that pushed him there in canon still exists. He's seen admirals erase fleets. He's felt the gulf between his crew and true monsters. He's tasted what it means to stand helpless while people he loves are nearly killed in front of him. In this version, Ace and Sabo are alive, but only because others could stand where he couldn't. Rayleigh's argument still cuts deep. Disappearing, training, and coming back stronger still feels like the only path that doesn't end in more bodies on the ground. He's not only trying to prevent another Ace, he's training so no one ever has to throw themselves between him and a killing blow again. When he imagines the future now, it isn't just him on the Pirate King's throne. It's him, Ace, and Sabo, side by side, strong enough that the world can't easily tear them apart. The Straw Hats still scatter. They still grow. They just do it in a world where the legend of three brothers at Marineford is already reshaping expectations. Sabo's presence doesn't turn Marineford into a happy ending. Whitebeard still dies on a scaffold of the old era. Thousands still fall nameless into the sea. Power vacuums still open. Blackbeard still steps up to fill one of the darkest. Ace's survival hardens Marine policy and drags the Revolutionary Army into the light earlier. The government's next moves may be even more ruthless. Luffy doesn't lose Ace forever, but he now lives with the knowledge that two brothers nearly died for him in the same heartbeat, and that they do it again. Sabo saves a life, and in doing so, accelerates the conflict he's been preparing for since childhood. Marineford remains a scar on the world, it's just carved at a different angle. The image that lingers from his altered war isn't a corpse on a burning battlefield. It's three silhouettes. A burned man with fire in his veins, carrying his captain's will and his father's legacy. A rubber pirate grinning through new scars, still aiming for the Pirate King's throne. A revolutionary with a pipe and a purpose, walking the line between shadows and spotlight. They stand on the far side of Marineford alive, because they refused the roles the world handed them. Marineford was supposed to say, "This is what happens to those who inherit Roger's will." Instead, it gave birth to a different legend. No matter how many walls you build, how many guns you point, some bonds will punch a hole through anyway. The rest of the era is the world trying to understand what that means, and deciding what to do about three brothers who walked out of an execution together. So here is the comment prompt. If Sabo had reached Marineford before Ace died, do you think the three brothers could have escaped together? Or would the world government have found an even harsher way to break them?